Unexpected connection. Single dad janitor dances with disabled girl. Billionaire mom discovers heartache and hope. Jake wiped the sweat from his brow, the dull noises of the empty gym echoing under the fluorescent lights. He adjusted the broom in his hand, but why bother? Today was the last day of school before summer, and the place felt alive, buzzing with the lingering excitement of kids, but all that was left now was dusty memories of laughter. Then, just like that, Emma burst through the doors, full of energy, her bright smile cutting through the shadow of that emptiness. She danced toward him, her movements both clumsy and poetic, her joy radiating like sunlight. Their dance-off had ignited the gym into a whimsical playground where all doubts melted away, but beneath that carefree laughter, Jake felt a storm brewing inside. As a janitor, Jake worked tirelessly, a badge of pride that had also become a shackle. He was the proud single dad, dedicated to Emma, but every choice weighed heavily on him. Should he embrace the chance to uplift her, or was he betraying the sense of loyalty he held for his role and community? He could see Emma moving with such grace, her laughter a balm to his restless thoughts. But what if his dreams of a better life for her fractured the very ground they built together? The idea of her freely dancing echoed promises he could never fulfill. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just when he thought the weight could lift, Laura stepped onto the scene. Returning from the fast-paced city life, she was now a polished CEO, yet her heart felt heavy, troubled by something deeper, emptiness disguised as success. Peering through the gym's large windows, she watched Jake and Emma's connection, and her own past flickered like an old film reel. She had loved dancing, but somewhere along the way, she crushed that whimsy to climb to the top, now staring at an abyss of her own making. The urge to reach out and propose a dance program for kids like Emma swayed her, yet she could already hear whispers in her mind. Did she really understand hardship? As days passed, skepticism from the school board crushed her hope like brittle paper. Would her privilege tarnish her sincerity? Jake too felt the pressure. Could he risk their fragile bond to accept help from someone so different? Emma's joy was at stake, pulsing dangerously close to a chasm of uncertainty. The tension between his loyalty to the life he knew and the breathtaking possibility of change clawed at him. The curtain would eventually rise, illuminating not just the stage but all their doubts. As the lights flickered to life, Jake's heart raced. He believed in Emma's potential, but now, with the rhythm of hope pounding in unison with his fears, he felt trapped. What would he sacrifice for a sliver of a dream? Would they emerge stronger together, or would the cracks deepen? Emma's voice, somehow wrapped around those dreams, pulled him closer. Yet in the swell of music, he stood questioning everything he had ever known. Jake stared at Emma as she spun, a whirl of sheer enthusiasm and unfiltered joy, the way she moved drawing him in like a moth to a flame. Each laugh seemed to echo off the gym walls, and for a moment, he was reminded of the ease that existed in their little world, a sanctuary amidst the chaos of bills, work, and crushed dreams. Yet, the more he watched her, the more his heart sank with the weight of his reality. The joyful dance they shared now felt like a fragile veneer over a much deeper struggle. How could he let his daughter dream of a future that he hadn't successfully built for her? The longer he hesitated, the more he could feel the division forming between ambition and fear. He questioned whether he should take a risk, not just for himself but for Emma, urging her towards an opportunity that he believed could change everything. After the gym cleared, the echoes of laughter replaced by the emptiness of the space, Jake sat on a bench, his hands clenched around the edges. Guilt gnawed at him. He couldn't shake the feeling that accepting help was a betrayal of their journey together. As he thought about Laura's proposition, he wrestled with the internal narrative that whispered of his inadequacies as both a father and a provider. What if Emma didn't need a dance program? She needed him to be content with their current life. Meanwhile, Laura's own doubts crowded in on her. After facing rejection from the school board, she too had returned to her own mental battleground. The allure of building a program for the children had been intoxicating, giving her a purpose that felt authentic. Now, however, the understated fear of her own privilege pang in her gut. While she had once closed herself off from spontaneity, she longed to reignite that spark of passion she had lost. Perhaps the kids, especially Emma, could help her rediscover that part of herself. Days turned to a week, and tension thickened. Jake found himself working longer hours, escaping the growing anxiety brewing at home. Each scrubbing of the gym floor felt like he was polishing an unending cycle of routine, yet the feeling of entrapment was mounting. Every evening spent with Emma dancing and laughing became a reminder of the life he wished to uplift. And then, one evening, it happened. Emma pulled out a sketch she had made of a dance studio. "Look, Dad. It's where I want to dance, and have friends dance too," she exclaimed, her eyes twinkling with passion. The moment her vision spilled out of her mind and into the world, Jake felt a mix of pride and dread. This drawing, full of color and possibility, felt like a blueprint for everything he had feared. Could he really turn dreams into reality when he barely believed in his own? Somehow, despite the gnawing fear, a flicker ignited within him, sparking the beginnings of possibility. Could he fight through the fears that had kept him stagnant for so long? He had always been the protector and provider, but now he found himself at a crossroads. Could he become a dreamer, too? That night, without realizing it, Jake made a decision. He would at least reach out to Laura. Perhaps, just this once, he might let another person in and trust that change could offer something other than fear and uncertainty. As he picked up his phone, he felt a shudder of apprehension dance through him. The text message formed in his mind, yet he hesitated before hitting send. Was he brave enough to see where this risky leap might take them, or was he destined to stay trapped in a comfort zone that offered nothing but the familiar weight of silence? The moment to confront his doubts had come, and Jake knew he had to choose: embrace opportunity or retreat into familiarity. The next move could lead them towards something extraordinary or simply deeper shadows of failure. Could he overcome the narratives that had long governed his life, or was he stepping into a darker abyss of uncertainty? Jake's fingers hovered above the screen of his phone, and his heart raced as a swirl of thoughts crashed through his mind. Laura would likely understand, he mused, but what if she saw him as weak? The shroud of vulnerability that wrapped around him felt foreign and unwelcome. To reach out and express a desire for partnership, the fear of judgment paralyzed him. Yet, as he focused on Emma's hopeful face, he felt the weight of the future pressing down. With a quick inhale, Jake hit send. The message felt like a confession, a daring breach into the wall he had built around himself. "Can we talk?" he typed, heart thumping, knowing the risks of allowing another person into his inner turmoil. A moment later, the notification chimed, "Of course." "When?" They arranged to meet the following day at a small cafe. The prospect of facing Laura fueled a cocktail of excitement and trepidation within him. Was this a step toward progress or another instance of failure? He knew he needed to confront his fears, but doubt whispered its familiar refrain. The next day, as he approached the cafe, the sunlight hit his face, igniting an unexpected flutter of hope. He inhaled deeply, forcing an unwavering smile before stepping inside. Laura was already seated at a corner table, her fingers wrapped around a steaming mug. Her expression was one of nervous anticipation, mirroring his own apprehension. "Hey, Jake," she said, eyes scanning his face for assurance. It felt oddly comforting, but unease tightened in his chest. "Hey," he replied, taking a seat across from her. They exchanged casual conversation, but beneath it lingered the unspoken weight. It was as if they were balancing on a precipice, uncertain of how to step forward without falling into each other's chaos. "Did you think about the program?" Laura ventured, her voice low and tentative. Jake hesitated. He wrestled with the uncomfortable weight of his response. I think we should give it a shot," he finally managed. Each word felt like an offering, a tentative step towards something new. She leaned in, her bright eyes shimmering with excitement. "I can reach out to the community for support. We could maybe host some fun workshops for the kids, get them excited about dance." He nodded, feeling the flicker of possibility grow within him. And if we make it work, think about what it could mean for Emma. Their conversation flowed into ideas and hopes, gradually replacing the apprehension that weighed down the earlier moments. The thrill of creative vision melded with Jake's longing to build a better world for Emma, allowing him to imagine a life beyond his fears. But as they exchanged plans, a creeping self-doubt lingered in the periphery. Truthful questions began to clash. Could they truly achieve what they envisioned? Would his struggles to provide overshadow any progress? Yet every laugh they shared shattered a piece of the self-imposed isolation he had clung to. Before he knew it, laughter burst from his lips at a silly quip Laura made, and he suddenly felt a shift. The transparency between them shifted from fragile to promising. But beneath the surface of their burgeoning partnership, Jake could feel the shadows of his conditioning creeping back in. Was this chance encounter blurring the lines between professional ambition and personal relationships? A decision had never felt so deeply situated at the intersection of his past and what he desperately hoped to build for the future. As he navigated through the sea of excitement and doubt, Jake's mind raced with one monumental realization: he was finally moving closer to what he wanted, not just for Emma, but for himself. Embracing possibility no longer felt like an abstract idea but rather a solid path beneath his feet. Later that week, a message from Laura ignited fresh anxiety. "We've got a chance to present our idea at the community meeting next Thursday. Think we can pull it off?" Jake's stomach flipped. It was now or never. Could he truly put himself on the line, standing before a room full of strangers to share their vision? Would bearing his aspirations to others release him from the fear of rejection that had long encapsulated him? The clock ticked down, a reality show countdown amplified by the beats of his racing heart. With everything on the line, his next move could either cultivate the life he envisioned or plunge him back into obscurity. The stakes felt astronomical, but under every wave of uncertainty, the voice of determination surged. It was time to face the future he had long denied himself. As Thursday approached, Jake's anticipation twisted like a taut rope pulling at his insides. The prospect of standing in front of familiar faces he'd known for years and some he'd never met plagued him with a sense of impending doom. He spent hours rehearsing the speech in front of the mirror, his reflection offering nothing but a mix of determination and unease. Envisioning how we could empower the kids through dance, he muttered under his breath, but his voice wavered, failing to capture the ambition behind the idea. The imposter syndrome clawed at him with repeated accusations of inadequacy. Who was he to teach anyone about empowerment when his own life felt so unsteady? But then he thought of Emma, her enthusiasm a beacon that pulled him back from the brink of despair. Each day, as he picked her up from school, he watched her thrumming with excitement, her small feet tapping out imaginary beats. There was something infectious in her youthful zeal, a hopeful flicker that urged him to rise above his doubts. Wasn't her joy worth every measure of uncertainty? He tried to channel that joy when he met Laura again just prior to the meeting. They sat at the same cafe, surrounded by the rhythm of clattering cups and muted conversations. The routine ambience felt both familiar and suffocating as they mapped out their presentation. "Okay, so we open with a personal story from one of us, something to connect with the audience," Laura suggested, her voice a blend of assurance and excitement. Jake's mind raced back to a less graceful time in his life, teetering on the edge of failure. Yet at that moment, he believed sharing his struggles might resonate with others. "I could talk about how dance was my escape during tough times," he pressed, testing the waters of vulnerability. Laura's enthusiastic nod made him push further. "And how it's not just a pastime for us, but a way to cultivate resilience among kids, especially those who might feel lost like I did." The notion was terrifying yet liberating, and as he spoke, the shaking anxiety inside him began to settle. The conversation delved deeper, unfolding into intricate plans that balanced his newfound resolve to embrace both personal and professional paths. Each word drafted a parallel endeavor, a way to light a fire of hope in himself while imparting something valuable to their audience. Emerging from the cafe, Jake felt lighter, albeit nervously buoyant. Their meeting buzzed with adrenaline, the commitment to the upcoming presentation crystallizing his desires into something tangible. They spent the evening finalizing their notes, allowing laughter to punctuate moments of uncertainty. Jake sensed a change within himself, every discussion about their aspirations began peeling away layers of self-doubt, much like the husking of corn. As the sun dipped below the horizon the night before the meeting, Jake lay awake strategizing ways to empower both his daughter and the kids they aimed to inspire. Images of smiling faces danced before him, intermingled with his fears like a gluttonous parody, laughing at his ambitions. But the root of that ambition was grounded in something greater than ambition alone. It was about forging a future where Emma could thrive uninhibited, surrounded by support and creativity. He was determined not to default to fear, but rather to visualize success. The morning of the community meeting dawned, the heavy air unable to disguise his nerves. He arrived at the venue early, allowing himself to absorb the atmosphere. A blend of excitement and anxiety from other presenters echoed about the hall. "Breathe," he muttered to himself, trying to conquer the growing knot in his stomach. When the time came, he and Laura stepped up to the front, a palpable shift in the energy around them. As they began to discuss their vision, the apprehensions melted away, replaced by something different: clarity. They compassed the room's energy, igniting a spark that resonated with the audience. But just as Jake began to find his footing, a voice rang out from the back, challenging his poise. "But how can we trust you? What have you done to prove you're capable?" Jake's heart sank. The question sliced through his prepared narrative, reverberating doubts he thought he'd tamed. In that moment of confrontation, he knew that this pivotal challenge could either shatter his resolve or solidify it. He looked at Laura, then back to the audience. Inhaling, he steeled himself for an answer that could either anchor him or send him adrift. The stakes surged yet again, and with every beat of his heart, he prepared to respond, exposing layers he had shielded for too long. What choice would he make? Jake felt the weight of the audience's gaze pressing down on him, a suffocating blanket that threatened to crush any remaining confidence he had managed to conjure. Time seemed to slow as he grappled with the question that sliced through his heart. He had prepared for applause and encouragement, but not this. This was raw, unfiltered doubt. It was real, and he felt it sting deeply. A memory flashed before him, the trembling hands of a young girl he had worked with in a past community initiative, a girl who came from a world of abandonment yet emanated joy through dance. The thought ignited a singular conviction. "Trust is built through connection," he said, his voice steadying itself as he embraced the silence. "Every time I connected with a child through dance, I learned the importance of listening to their stories. But more importantly, I learned the power of sharing my own." He had to make his voice heard, to convey that it wasn't about accolades or past triumphs. It was about presence, sincerity, and genuine intention. As he spoke, Jake could feel pieces of himself aligning, knitting together the thread of vulnerability and resolve. "I've had moments when I felt invisible, like I didn't belong anywhere," he continued. "But through dance, I found my voice. I want to give that same experience to others, especially to those who feel unnoticed." To his surprise, the audience was silent, captivated. Jake caught Laura's eye briefly. The encouraging nod she sent his way fueled his determination. "I know I'm still on my journey, but if I can empower even one child to believe in themselves, it's worth every ounce of uncertainty I feel." He realized then that there was inherent power in sharing his struggles. The challenge from the audience member wasn't just a confrontation, it was an invitation to forge a deeper connection, to redefine his narrative from one of insecurity to resilience. Taking a step forward, he leaned into the moment, his earlier fear transforming into a surge of purpose. "I'm here not just to share success stories, but to embrace the failures that taught me how to rise again." The murmurs of the audience shifted, a wave of understanding traversing the room. Each member began to physically lean in, drawn by sincerity, authenticity, realities they could relate to. As the presentation continued, Jake felt a bond forming with the audience. He shared anecdotes, moments of failure intermingled with glimpses of newfound hope. Laughter punctuated the narrative when he stumbled into humorous territory, grounding his discussion in relatable experiences. When he finally concluded, a sense of relief flooded over him, tempered by the raw exuberance of sharing himself so openly. People were standing, clapping not just out of courtesy but with genuine appreciation. He had fought through the fears that had barricaded him for far too long, transforming them into a bridge rather than a wall. After the presentation, a few individuals approached him, their expressions a mixture of gratitude and curiosity. One woman shared how she had once felt invisible as a child, thanking him for voicing their shared experience. Another told him how she was inspired to start training children in her neighborhood. Just then, as words of encouragement surged around him, Jake caught sight of Emma playing with a few children near the back of the hall, joyfully tapping her feet to a melody only she could hear. It was in that moment that Jake realized he wasn't just navigating his own journey, he was lighting the path for others as well. Jake! Laura's voice pulled him back from his epiphany, her eyes gleaming with excitement. You were incredible. I think we both have a lot to reflect on from this experience. He nodded, still absorbing the waves of emotion washing over him. It was more than just a successful presentation, it was the beginning of something profound. Yet, within the warmth of validation, new questions simmered beneath the surface. How far could he take this newfound connection? What changes awaited him as he ventured deeper into the world of empowerment through dance? The realization hit him hard. This was just the first step on a path that had the potential to reshape not only his life, but the lives of so many others. The challenge had opened a door. The question remained, what would lie on the other side? Jake left the presentation hall feeling buoyed, his mind still racing with the interactions he had. He processed the faces of those who approached him, the spark of inspiration radiating from them. What had ignited this shift within him? How had vulnerability transformed into strength? The self-questioning became a mental whirlpool, forcing him to navigate through the complexities of his own progress. Walking through the now empty hall, he glanced at the dimming lights and felt an odd mix of pride and disbelief. This wasn't just about a successful presentation, it was an emotional breakthrough. Yet shadows of self-doubt began to creep back in. Was he equipped to guide this newfound journey? Could he maintain this momentum, or would he falter at the first obstacle? Leaving the building, he took a deep breath of the crisp evening air. The chill felt refreshing, a reminder of the world outside his recent cocoon of introspection. He could almost hear the laughter of the children in his mind, their joy fueling his purpose. But even as he savored the moment, there was a deeper realization that struck him, the need for structure. Inspiration wasn't built on spontaneity alone, it required a plan. That night, he sat at his kitchen table, cluttered with papers and old sketchbooks, and pulled out a blank sheet. The act of writing felt monumental, a commitment to follow through on the path he had just stepped onto. With each word he wrote, he focused on specific goals, finding resources to expand his outreach, developing workshops that focused on self-expression through dance, and integrating stories from the very children he aimed to empower. The clarity was intoxicating, yet ominous. Would he be able to find the right collaborators? Who would believe in his vision enough to invest their time and energy alongside him? The nagging worries tugged at his resolve as he began mapping out potential names, dancers, educators, and fellow dreamers he had encountered in his journey. Some were acquaintances, others mere figures in his past, yet now they seemed like pillars to reinforce his ambitions. Over the next few days, Jake was relentless. He reached out to contacts, scheduling coffees and meetings. Some were enthusiastic, eager to assist, while others met his calls with neutral reactions, tapping at their smartphones while he spoke. Each response became a litmus test for his growing confidence. Rejection stung, particularly from those he had respected, yet it propelled him forward. It's part of the journey, he reminded himself, pulling from that newly found reservoir of resilience. Laura reappeared in his plans as both a mentor and a collaborator, her expertise in community development providing him a framework he desperately needed. The more they talked, the more a vision came to life, a series of workshops that swept across their city, engaging children from diverse backgrounds, teaching them not only to express themselves but also to trust in their unique narratives. Yet, with clarity came more questions. Would his personal attachment to the project cloud his decisions? What if he became too emotionally invested? As he stared at the hastily drawn outlines of his workshops, he couldn't shake the thought. What if he fell short of his mission? The risk of failing to meet the expectations he'd set for himself taunted him, but the thrill of the challenge was intoxicating. The following weekend, a pop-up dance session in the park ignited a spark. Children ranging from shy toddlers to boisterous teenagers joined in the rhythm of a spontaneous jam. Standing on the sidelines, Jake wasn't merely a spectator, he was facilitating connections, laughter erupting as children lost themselves in the moment. As laughter filled the icy air, unease morphed into exhilaration. But just beyond the laughter, his mind whirled with questions. Was he truly grasping the full potential of this movement he was catalyzing? How would he harness it into something sustainable? And in the fleeting moments of joy, anticipation coiled in his gut. Then, as he watched one young girl twirl with abandon, he noticed a figure approach, an unfamiliar face, eyes sparkling with curiosity and an intensity that sent a bolt of electricity through him. Who was she, and what role would she play in this unfolding chapter of his life? As the figure drew closer, Jake's heart raced, a mix of excitement and trepidation washing over him. The unfamiliar face shifted into clarity. It was a woman in her early 30s, radiating an energy that swept toward him like the sun breaking through a cold morning. Her curly hair danced around her face, framing a pair of bright, piercing blue eyes that seemed impossibly attuned to the joy surrounding them. "Hi there. I couldn't help but notice how you're connecting with those kids," she said, her voice melodic and warm. "I'm Eliza. Do you volunteer here often?" Jake stammered an introduction, scrambling to gather his thoughts. He envisioned a day filled with myriad interactions, yet this encounter felt particularly weighty, like a moment poised on the threshold of something new. "Not exactly volunteer," he admitted. "I'm brainstorming ways to teach dance to children. It's a work in progress." The words tumbled out, but he felt their earnestness echo within him. Her eyes sparkled not just with curiosity but understanding. "I'm involved in arts education. We focus on integrating movement into children's learning. Dance is such a powerful tool for self-expression. Have you thought about how to incorporate it into your workshops?" The ease of their exchange ignited a flicker of possibility in Jake's mind. While he spent the last week fearing he'd be in over his head, she seemed to grasp the weight of his ambitions immediately. And more than simply getting its potential, she was implying a partnership, a collaboration that felt both inviting and intimidating. He found himself leaning in, eager to explore this connection. "Actually, I've been struggling with how to structure the workshops so they truly resonate with the kids. I want them to feel ownership over their narratives," he confessed. Eliza nodded, her expression thoughtful. "I love that approach. In my experience, it's vital for kids to see themselves in the art they create. Have you thought about showcasing their stories through dance? That could resonate at a deeper level." A bolt of realization hit him. He hadn't merely been framing workshops as a lesson in dance but as a way to empower narratives. Upon reflecting, he wondered whether he'd been limiting his vision due to his own fears. Trembling on the brink of vulnerability, he began to see how this new connection might help him fortify the foundation he was building. The conversation flowed effortlessly, and Jake shared his dreams more freely than he had in days. The deeper they delved into possibilities, the more revelations unfolded. Eliza wasn't just an observer, she had extensive networks and resources he was only beginning to tap into. Each suggestion she made felt like an invitation to explore pathways he hadn't considered before. But as the thrill of collaboration flourished, unease followed closely behind. Could he really trust this newfound connection? His skepticism hovered like a dark cloud over his aspirations, whispering old doubts. What if she didn't share his commitment? What if this was just another fleeting interaction? Yet that intuitive spark he had felt upon first meeting her urged him forward. They traded contact information, and as they parted, Jake was left with a whirlwind of emotions. Hope danced alongside apprehension, creating an exhilarating tension within him. The next day, as he sat at his table, a place where possibility met uncertainty, an idea began to form, one taking shape within the chaos of his mind. Could he design the workshop to intertwine dance with storytelling, allowing children not just to move but to share who they were? Still riding the waves of his conversation with Eliza, he excitedly drafted a newsletter to share his new vision. But the moment of clarity quickly turned shadowy as memories of setbacks crept in, threatening to unravel his resolve. Doubt resurfaced like an old friend, whispering that this spark might fizzle out without his careful guidance. Jake stared at the words as they danced across the page. The stakes suddenly felt higher. Would his instinct to partner with Eliza lead to the breakthrough he needed, or would it lead him into a deeper quagmire of unfulfilled expectations? Only time would reveal whether his eagerness to connect was wise or reckless. As the weight of the next decision loomed, Jake took a deep breath, aware that he stood at a crossroads defined by risk. How could he strike a balance between opening himself to collaboration and ensuring he wouldn't dilute his vision? The future felt tantalizingly close, yet infinitely complex. The moment was upon him. He needed to decide how far he was willing to go to transform this flickering possibility into a blazing reality. As he prepared to reach out to Eliza, he wondered, would their connection lead to a flourishing partnership, or was he about to step into murky waters where vulnerability might drown him? Jake stared at the screen, the blinking cursor taunting him. The newsletter draft sat incomplete, a collage of ideas and aspirations battling against his insecurities. As doubt crept back in, he could almost hear the familiar voices from his past, whispers of inadequacy and fear echoing in the corners of his mind, each memory a reminder of his struggles. But something felt different now, a subtle shift within him. This was not just about teaching choreographed steps, it was about helping children share their voices, their stories, and the narratives that wove the fabric of their identities. Each child stood at the threshold of their own world, and if he could create a space where they could express themselves, perhaps he could kindle a spark that lit up their paths. Before he could overthink, he opened a new email address and began typing to Eliza, his fingers moving with a newfound determination. "Dear Eliza," he wrote, "I've been reflecting on what we discussed, and I believe that intertwining dance with storytelling could truly bring forth something unique. I'd love to brainstorm further. When are you available?" With each word, the heaviness of his insecurities began to lift, replaced by the exhilarating anticipation of their collaboration. The act of reaching out had ignited a fire he had thought dormant, a sensation reminiscent of the exhilaration he felt before stepping on stage. Later that evening, Jake found himself pacing his small living room, anticipating her response. Each flutter of his heart was laced with anxiety blending into excitement. The door clicked open, and his daughter came bounding in. Her laughter echoed through the room, and in her innocent joy, he saw the embodiment of the very inspiration he sought to cultivate in his workshops. "Dad, can we dance?" she asked, her bright eyes shimmering with enthusiasm. "Of course," he replied, a smile spreading across his face. As they moved together, the space transformed. She twirled and leaped, unshackled by doubt, her movements telling a story of courage and freedom. In her joyful expressions, Jake began to see the profound impact of his vision. This was not merely about dance, it was about empowering children to become narrators of their own lives. That night, as he tucked her into bed, he mulled over the day. His daughter's laughter played over and over in his mind, and he realized he had an innate understanding of dance that transcended technique, one rooted in human emotion and personal connection. But there was still a gnawing fear whispering in the back of his mind. What if he fell short of his aspirations? He had never worked on such an intimate level before. While the idea of sharing movement with children thrilled him, the stakes felt significantly higher. He pondered whether he had the capacity to negotiate these waters, especially with the stakes tied to their identities. The next morning brought the sound of a notification, the email from Eliza. Heart racing, Jake opened it, and suddenly the battle lines of his initial insecurities transformed into thrilling challenges. Eliza expressed excitement about exploring his ideas but also proposed a meeting where they could discuss structural plans and possible outcomes. Jake's pulse quickened, not just with exhilaration but with the weight of responsibility. How could he ensure that his unique blend of dance and storytelling didn't get lost in educational protocols? Would his authenticity survive the academic scrutiny they might encounter together? This was more than just a potential partnership, it was an opportunity to redefine his path. Feeling emboldened, he drafted notes for their meeting, strategies for integrating children's narratives, and how to maintain their essence amid the rigors of structure. As he prepared, a realization crystallized within him: the dance of vulnerability and innovation was the very essence of partnership. In this collaboration with Eliza, he might just discover the confidence he'd long sought. Yet somewhere beneath his resolve, doubt simmered. Was he truly ready to stake his vision on a partnership that involved shared risks and rewards? The weight of expectation loomed heavily as he sensed the enormity of what lay ahead. As the day of the meeting approached, Jake knew he was standing on the brink of transformation, but also on the precipice of potential failure. Would he leap into the unknown, trusting the partnership with Eliza to forge new pathways, or would he stumble under the weight of his fears? The answer was still shrouded in uncertainty, but one thing was clear: Jake was ready to take the leap into the dance of collaboration. The moment had arrived to confront not just his ambitions but the shadows that lurked just beyond the light of his aspirations. Jake's pulse raced as he entered the small conference room where he would meet Eliza. The muted colors of the walls felt oppressive, and the stark overhead light accentuated the shadows of doubt on his heart. He forced himself to breathe, reflecting on the purpose of this meeting. It was about amplifying children's narratives, a goal worth every ounce of uncertainty gnawing at him. Eliza arrived, her bright demeanor cutting through his apprehension. "Jake. I'm so glad we could meet." She extended her hand, her confidence immediately grounding him a little. As they exchanged pleasantries, he saw a spark in her eyes. She radiated enthusiasm that matched the flicker of inspiration he felt when he thought of merging dance with storytelling. But as they sat down, delving into the practical aspects of their collaboration, questions swirled in Jake's mind. Eliza laid out a rough framework for their project, meticulously detailing the logistics of integrating movement exploration with storytelling sessions. While he appreciated her organizational skills, Jake felt a tightening in his throat. What if, in seeking structure, they stripped away the very essence he wanted to preserve? "Jake," Eliza said, noting his silence, "your vision is vital here. I want to make sure we are capturing those authentic children's voices. They are the heart of this project." Her reassurance amplified his internal conflict. He needed to step beyond mere enthusiasm. He needed to assert his vision without the fear of it being overshadowed by protocol. "I believe that every child should feel free to express themselves," he began, gathering his resolve. "But we must be careful not to box them in with traditional structures. We need to allow a flow that lets their stories breathe." Eliza nodded, her attentiveness encouraging. "That's exactly why partnering with you is so exciting. We can create a curriculum that respects creativity while also achieving educational outcomes." The conversation deepened, but a part of him floundered in the undercurrents of concern. With every passing moment, he realized that inherent in their partnership was a vulnerability he hadn't anticipated. If the children failed to resonate with the program, if his ideas didn't materialize, it wouldn't just be a rejection of his professional identity, it would feel like a personal failure. While Eliza outlined potential workshop structures, Jake felt his mind racing. He hadn't fully acknowledged how deeply this project could resonate with his own fears. Would he falter once again, or could he finally redefine the narrative of his own life through these children's stories? "Let us brainstorm some activities," Eliza suggested, jolting him from his spiral of self-doubt. As they collaborated, Jake reclaimed a sense of agency. With each idea, he began to weave in his experience, drawing from his time teaching dance and the narratives he had always aimed to share. The words flowed more freely now, and he felt the familiar excitement creeping back. Yet, just as Jake began to feel buoyed by this flow of creativity, a pang of insecurity sliced through him. What if the children didn't connect with his vision? What if his attempts to inspire fell flat? Would Eliza, a partner in this unfolding narrative, ever see the possibilities he envisioned? By the end of their meeting, as they jotted down actionable tasks and plotted timelines, Jake felt a surge of determination. He was learning to navigate through the labyrinth of fear, challenging himself to center his creative instincts, not just his anxieties. As they concluded, Eliza smiled. "I feel a great partnership forming here, Jake. I can't wait to see what we create together." "Thank you for believing in this vision," he said, a flicker of confidence igniting in his chest. Walking out of the meeting, Jake felt a myriad of emotions colliding. Each step grounded him in his growing sense of self-worth, yet the shadows of doubt lingered in the background. Could he keep this newfound momentum? Or would the familiarity of insecurity penetrate the space they had carved out for the children's stories? With each challenge on the horizon, he could only wait to see if this leap into self-discovery would transform his fear into the creative courage he desperately sought. The moment had arrived to confront not only the potential of a shared vision with Eliza but his enduring grapple with fear. The real question was, Would he dare to dance with it? Jake's heart raced as he walked towards the gathering at the community center, a palpable energy crackling around him. The room buzzed with anticipation, colorful posters of children's drawings, vibrant text proclaiming, "Dance matters," adorning the walls. He could hear the chatter of parents discussing hopes and dreams for their children, and he felt a thrill to finally stand amongst them as a point of pride, not fear. This was not just a gathering, this was the birthplace of a vision he could finally call his own. Weeks of hard work culminated here, in this moment. Each workshop had been designed not only to teach the mechanics of dance but to celebrate the children's individual stories, to shine light on their unique narratives. It was a melding of movement and expression, a powerful statement that told them they mattered. And with every child who attended, he felt the weight of validation lift, inching him closer to solidifying his place within the community. As the event unfolded, Jake watched with genuine pride as kids poured into the hall, laughter echoing off the walls like music itself. Emma beamed at him from amidst a group of children, each of them eager to share their experiences. Watching her thrive filled him with an overwhelming sense of purpose. This was his redemption. Each session became a vivid tapestry woven with joy and discovery. Feedback flowed in from parents, and for the first time, Jake wasn't just a janitor but a catalyst for change. The workshops blossomed further, attracting community support, culminating in invitations to perform at local showcases. The heartbeat of self-worth resonated through him as people entrusted their children to this journey he helped create. Through Eliza's unwavering support and expertise, their collaboration blossomed into a dynamic partnership rooted in shared ideals. They developed a rhythm, each brainstorming session igniting fresh inspiration that carved pathways for innovation. The fear of inadequacy began to dissolve with every success they achieved together. As Jake stood on stage at the community showcase, watching a few of his students perform a routine depicting their struggles and triumphs, pride surged through him. In the audience, he spotted Emma, bouncing on her toes, sparkling eyes full of excitement as she cheered her friends on. Everything he had worked for, every doubt he had wrestled with, brought him to this moment. "Look how they shine," Eliza whispered beside him, noting the audience's reception transforming into a standing ovation. It was an electrifying moment, the culmination of all his fears, doubts, and aspirations. This was proof, a live demonstration of how belief in children elevated their spirits and expanded the horizons of their dreams. Later that evening, as applause lingered in the air, Jake absorbed the reality of his journey, the transformation that came from embracing vulnerability and inviting others to share in both his ambitions and struggles. Every trembling step forward painted a picture of resilience that replaced the shackles of his past. He had not only established a dance program but had also cultivated a space of belonging for all kids who had, like himself, felt unseen. With acknowledgement pouring in from parents, community leaders, and even letters from other schools, Jake found himself finally where he longed to be, not at the edges but at the forefront of change. His hard-earned self-recognition helped him confront the shadows that loomed over him in the past, lifting the burden of believing he was unworthy of success. That narrative had long faded into the background, replaced by something much richer, a sense of purpose that urged him onward. The next day, buoyed by victory, Jake was met with new challenges, primarily ideas for expansion. Eliza proposed reaching out beyond their initial community, perhaps identifying schools that lacked arts programs. The thought sent a thrill through him. What if they could replicate their success elsewhere? He realized, in that instant, that ambition no longer terrified him, it exhilarated him. As Jake prepared to send out proposals to neighboring schools and districts, emails leaning towards collaboration filled his inbox. The confidence he wore like armor now reminded him that every child deserved the chance to dance, to share their stories, and he was poised to lead this charge. He felt a wave of gratitude wash over him, coupled with a nagging sense of responsibility to keep delivering. This was no longer just about Emma or himself, it was about every child waiting for their moment in the spotlight, the chance to express themselves and find joy in their movements. Stepping outside, the air felt fresh and invigorating. The sun shone brightly, filling him with a renewed vigor. There was no denying it now, he had achieved something monumental, grounded in courage, a program that authentically represented the intertwining of movement and humanity. Finally, Jake had transformed, from a fearful janitor weighed down by self-doubt into a recognized leader in children's empowerment. He had proven, not just to the community but to himself, that embracing dreams often leads to extraordinary realities. The dance of vulnerability had propelled him into uncharted territory, where possibility bloomed and dreams flourished. As he walked further down the sunlit path, Jake reflected on his earlier fears. They were shadows, now mere echoes of the doubts he had danced through and conquered with each new step. He had opened the door to his own healing journey, illuminating a path that would enable endless potential for himself and countless children who shared similar dreams. This was his life, and every day offered a chance to continue thriving, to connect, to empower one joyful movement at a time. And with unwavering determination, an intense clarity filled his heart, urging him forward into the unknown. Don't hesitate. This is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your input truly makes a difference. Comment below your reactions and theories about this conclusion. And please, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this extraordinary leap of personal transformation. Don't wait even one more second to share. You could be the one who inspires someone else to take their own leap.